Hello, Denton, once again with another enthralling video. So sit back, be entertained. In this video, I'm going to talk about a pagan goddess. Now, not an old Norse one this time, no. An ancient goddess worshipped before the Roman Empire existed. And a most important deity, though today she's largely unknown. Now, I think even those who follow the gods of the north, the gods of Asgard, should perhaps also take, an interest in other pagan deities, to take note of them. There are often similarities between them, and that is the case in this particular video. Just as the various shamanic procedures found around the world even today bear similarities to the Valor of Scandinavia. Most people probably know of the great pagan goddesses, such as Athena, Isis, Astarte, the queen of the stars, Freya, Sif, or Skadi, the cat goddess, Bast, or at least their names may be somewhat familiar, even if not anything very much is actually known about them, but they will ring a bell. If you mention them, people will say, oh, yeah, I heard of her. But I would think not many people, even quite knowledgeable pagans, would recognize the name of Lasa, spelled Lasa, and unless of course they thought it was the capital of Tibet, though that is spelled differently, Lhasa, but with the same pronunciation. But no, the goddess Lasa has nothing whatsoever to do with Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, with that big palace thing sitting up on the side of the mountain. But Lhasa was by no means a minor deity. Maybe represented by some tiny little statuette on a insignificant shelf in the back room somewhere. No, she had a significant standing. A goddess of the Etruscans in Italy from well before the rise of the Roman Empire, or even the Roman city-state for that matter, or anything to do with Rome. The Etruscans actually founded the city of Rome, turning what had been little more than a collection of huts across 7 hills into a city that, unknown to them, would eventually throw off their rule and then conquer them as it began to expand into the greatest empire of the ancient world. Now, the Etruscans occupied a region of Italy that roughly corresponds with Tuscany and parts of Lazio and Umbria, bounded by the Arno and Tiber rivers, the Apennine Mountains, and the Tyrrhenian Sea, from circa 1200 BC, according to Herodotus in the histories, to their final assimilation into the expanding Roman domain around 264 BC. The Romans called them Tusci or Etrusci, from which, of course, derived the name of modern Tuscany, though they called themselves Ravenna. The Greeks knew them as Tyrrhenians, from the sea. Much of our knowledge about them, however, comes from outside sources, Greek and Roman mostly, since their own language has only been partly deciphered. Thus, they can't really speak too much for themselves, you might say. Most of what we know about them coming second-hand from others, or from their often superb murals found in tombs and the like, which are actually quite spectacular. They were quite excellent artists. Lasa was a goddess of fate and destiny. Not the goddess of fate. The principal goddess of fate was Nortia, the generic meaning of her name being spirit or nymph. And she was very closely associated also with Turin, the goddess of love, vitality, and fertility, the two frequently depicted together, showing that they did have this relationship. Now, that could give the impression, of course, that she was merely an assistant, a sidekick, if you like, of Turin, a sort of divine Batman and Robin, so to speak. But no, that was not the case. She was also often shown on her own. A favourite representation of her being engraved on the back of a mirror, or even used as a little statuette to form the handle of a mirror. Further proof that she was no mere servant to Turin. And the mirror is quite significant, as we shall come to in a moment, because mirrors seem to have been quite a part of Etruscan society. They didn't exactly hate themselves by the look of things. Now, she symbolized fate and destiny more as it related to romance, to love, and fertility, rather than if one was going to be rich or poor or healthy or sick, or when one would shuffle off this mortal coil, as Shakespeare so famously put it. those aspects were all, of course, combined in the Old Norse demi-goddesses, the Nonir or the Norns, they who allotted one's destiny at birth, though they didn't actually spin it on a loom, as is often incorrectly stated, being called the spinners. In fact, they actually carved it on bits of wood, so they might more properly be called the carvers. But of course, if you referred to the carvers of fate, people would just look at you and say, whereas, of course, if you say the spinners of fate, oh, yeah, we know who those are, the three women under trees spinning. Yeah, okay. Anyway, the idea of spinning actually came from the Moirai of Greece, known as the Fates, and somehow or other that became attached to the Norns later on. Nor were there just three of them. That's a point worth mentioning while I'm on the subject. The three principal Norns, Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, they are the named ones. They were the three who tended the great tree of life, Yggdrasil. But there were actually many unnamed Norns, and not just among the Norse people either. There were actually Norns all over the place. But the Etruscans actually had a trio of goddesses of their own dealing with fate and destiny, since Nortia, Turin, and Lasa formed a group, all concerned with aspects of that, though not forming a unified trio like the Nornir. But there were three Etruscan deities dealing with fate and destiny, just as there were in Scandinavia or in ancient Greece. Now, Lasa was usually depicted as a beautiful woman with wings, and almost always naked. Naked save for jewellery, such as a necklace and a bracelet with boots or soft slipper-like shoes, not simply completely naked. There is an interesting thing. The Etruscans knew something that today is part of what is, euphemistically termed glamour photography, in those gentlemen's magazines that you have to reach up to the top shelf in order to get, where models almost always wear something, be it a scarf, a necklace, gowns, or long boots, or at least I'm told that that's what they do. I have it on good authority, just to clarify that, because that is apparently more exotic, more captivating than wearing nothing at all, which I must say seems rather odd. I would have thought that less would be better in that case. But then who am I to question the wisdom of the ancients? And clearly that idea was known to the ancient Etruscans over 4,000 years before Playboy thought of it. In the immortal words attributed to Michael Caine, not a lot of people know that. Well, I suppose not a lot of people know that Michael never actually said that either. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. Now, she is often shown holding an Alabastron, which was a Greek type of perfume vase, often associated with funerals and made of alabaster. Obviously, I suppose, hence the name. Its contents either used to anoint the dead or left as an offering. It was rather like an amphora in appearance. But this item had another use besides that of funeral rituals, since it was also used by the living, women keeping their perfume in it, which, along with mirrors, ties in with the dual aspect of Lasa's role in Etruscan religion, as does another symbol associated with her. The Etruscans do seem to have had this dual symbolism thing. It forms quite a part of their art. She had a sort of sisterhood, a group of lesser goddesses known by the plural form of her name as the Lasae, and like her often depicted naked, with wings, and carrying an alabastron, or a mirror, the mirror again, and yes, wearing, a bit of something, a little bit. Anyway, they were regarded as a form of spiritual protector, a sort of guardian angel, I suppose you could say, helping to guide the personal destiny of those they watched over, looking after them and helping them along their way, giving them a gentle push, you might say, from time to time while they were alive, and protecting their tomb after they were dead. How nice of them, Now, mirrors feature so frequently in Etruscan art that we must assume they really liked looking at themselves. A sort of, oh, yes, oh, my, yeah. In my case, I try to avoid mirrors, I look in a mirror and then I look at a photograph of myself back in the theatre in the 60s and the 70s, and I think, no, no, that's not me. That's not me. That couldn't possibly now be this. Yes, it is, isn't it? Oh well. Even the greatest of beauty doesn't last forever. Sad but true. What can we do? Time marches on. Now, there seems to have been nothing particularly forbidding or foreboding about the connection of Lasa and the Lasse with death, or indeed death itself to the Etruscans. Unlike the gloomy Greek ideas on the subject, where the underworld was somewhere you really did not want to go to, all doom and gloom and misery with a big three-headed thing minding the door to stop you leaving. Not that you had, of course, much choice about being there. The Norse hell, which had nothing, of course, to do with punishment, as the later Christian version spelt with two L's did. No, that was far better. You could eat, drink, and be merry. There were flowers there. All the symbols of Lasa and the Lasse linked to the realm of the dead had a double meaning, both joyous and sorrowful. Life and death, I suppose, intertwined, as it were, indicating that the Etruscans thought these were simply, well, acceptable, albeit unavoidable, opposites of a whole. I suppose a sort of yin and yang, what today we might call the circle of life. Certainly, if we go by the superb wall murals found in the very elaborate Etruscan tombs, the afterlife wouldn't seem to be somewhere you'd really be afraid of. Quite the contrary, in fact. It seems to have started off with jolly family reunions. Everybody get together. There's no weeping and wailing and wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth. Oh, my God, he's gone, he's gone. No, it seems to have been more a sort of, well, he's dead, so let the fun begin. Get on with it, And then they went on with everlasting music, dancing, games, lots of food, and some pretty intimate stuff as well. Maybe dead wasn't really so bad. Well, if you were an Etruscan, it is. If you were an ancient Greek, well, you were really screwed. The Alabastron could, as I've said, be used both for funeral rites and for holding a woman's perfume. The latter function being something that would, well, most certainly be helpful in romantic matters, especially in an age when, well, odours of various less than pleasant things were pretty common, all that, rubbish and things thrown out in the street. Tying in with her closeness to the love goddess Turin, as does the frequency of her association with mirrors. Again, the dual role. On one hand, a tool assisting in feminine beauty, made to, for that matter, and therefore very helpful in matters of the heart. And on the other hand, it was yet another symbol of death, the appearance of the spirits of the dead in mirrors being a widespread belief, even down to the present day. My granddaughter actually told that she had seen someone in a mirror who had been dead for many years. And of course my grandmother told me how they used to put sheets over all the mirrors after somebody died, so they didn't see them in the mirror. Make what you like of that. Another frequent and again double symbol associated with the goddess and her lasse was a wreath, which could, of course, be a symbol of joy at weddings and festivals and an acknowledgement of great victory. Triumph in war! We won! But it could also be equally associated with funerals and grave offerings. The duality of her position, the relativity of fate to both life and death, seems quite obvious given this degree of symbolism and the various items associated with it. I find that quite an interesting aspect. So there we have Lasa. Now, perhaps not as famous as Aphrodite or Athena, nor as dominant as the Morrigan, nor as influential in world affairs as Freya, but an interesting deity in her own right, especially in her role as a divine representative of things that could be both immensely joyous and profoundly tragic, depending on the twists and turns of fate. Yet it seems not regarded with the fear associated with death in many cultures. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, well, tell your friends, bring them here to be entertained, enlightened, and enthralled, or bored out of their minds and fast asleep. No, it's possible. There's always one. There's always one. But for now, I shall say farewell until next time. Goodbye for now.